All right. So, welcome everyone. We have a very interesting conversation here today to present to you. We have two wonderful ladies from Empowering DLD Parenting, and we have Janine Whitney Cheng with us and Kamisha McKenzie. And we also have from Tri-Coast Education, Robin Grant and Ann Laurie. My name is Robert Laurie, father of Ann, also with Tri-Coast Education, and I'll be moderating this discussion here today. So without further ado, what I'd like to hear from each of you, and let's start with Janine and Kamisha. Who are you and what are your roles in the group and the team that you're playing?
Great question. So I guess I'll jump in here. I'm Janine. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I'm also a mom of four school-aged kids. And yeah, Kamisha and I work together, creating our book series and the other resources that go along with Empowered DLD Parenting. So we're co-authors of the book.
Mhm. And I'm Kamisha Russell. I also Janine and I have been friends for I don't know, I think we're at maybe 14 years, and I'm a teacher, elementary school teacher, and I absolutely love this space and being able to empower parents in the way that we do.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, so thank you, Janine and Kamisha, and Ann and Robin. Same question. Who are you and what do you guys do with Tri-Coast Education?
Yeah, so I'll go first. My name is Anne. I am president and co-founder of Tricoast Education. I have my PhD in education, and so this has been a long route for me. I work in the DLD assessment and also like multilingualism space. And so, yeah, I think the books, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about how, what a great piece of awareness this is for DLD, because as we know, it is not many people know about it. So this is a great space to talk about it.
My name is Robin Grant, and I would be the multimedia marketing specialist for Tricoast Education, and I'm also an artist, graphic designer, illustrator. My background is also in education. I have a master's degree in education in curriculum and instructional design, and I've used that over the years of my career as a graphic designer, and I've done lots of creative projects. And so, yeah, I've been working with Anne and Robert at Tricoast, helping support them with developing DLD awareness programs, including the children's books. And I've been really excited to be part of that.
I find it interesting that we've got two different groups working in the area of DLD, both Canadian, by the way, which is kind of interesting, obviously, for us as Canadians, because around the world, what we kind of see is that there are some pockets of interest around DLD, but certainly not as widespread as you would have for some other disorders and conditions. So it's interesting that both Canadian groups are getting together here today, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation. Let's go back to Kamisha and Janine. There are a lot of things we could be doing in the DLD world, but why books? Like, why did you guys decide to start writing books? I mean, one's an SLP, and the other one's a teacher. How did that come about?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think for us, we initially started this journey off with courses, actually. Um, Especially a big part of our name, Empowered DLD Parenting. We really wanted to empower parents, knowing that, as a teacher, there's only one of me, and I often have a class of maybe like 23 kids. And knowing that parents spend so much of their time with their child, we wanted to give them the tools, the resources, the vocabulary to be able to advocate for their child and support their child at home. So we actually started with a course, and we very quickly realized that parents are so busy, and having a course was really challenging for parents to complete. For them to be able to sit down and absorb this content, they were feeling so overwhelmed. So we went back to the drawing board, and that's where our books were birthed, knowing that parents felt so at ease, feeling like, okay, a book, I could do that. I could do a bedtime story. I could you know, wholeheartedly participate in engaging in this way without feeling guilty. So that was kind of the birth of our books.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that we noticed is so many parents that we spoke to were feeling desperate. They were very, very, very concerned about their child, what their child's future would be. We've had parents say to us, do I need to move to another city? Do I need to quit my job? Should I have another child? Maybe I should stop having kids so I can focus on this child. And both Kamisha and I have immediate family members who've received devastating neurological diagnoses. And so we just thought, we need to do something about this to support parents because they feel so alone. They don't understand what DLD is. Nobody in their support network, in most cases, knows what DLD is either. So, how can we explain to them what DLD is? How can we empower them with strategies? Um, the course resonated with some, but not a lot. So, we found that stories are when it clicks. Stories are when parents start to actually get, okay, now I get what DLD is. And
Mhm.
now I don't have to explain it 100 times to my different friends. I can show them the story with a real child in a real situation, struggling with language or executive function skills, and then they get it. Then the teacher gets it because it's exhausting to have that burden of explaining again and again. And to see the kids too struggling in the stories and then using strategies, overcoming some of their challenges, having another setback and overcoming that as well. I think it's also really encouraging for parents to see, okay, there's hope. There's something that I can share with my child's teacher. Now I feel just a little bit more secure or just a little bit more able to take the next step.
Yeah, that's great. That certainly justifies the book series for sure. Anne and Robin, what happened to Tricoast to give birth to these books called
Yeah,
Tricoast Adventures? Where'd that come from?
that's right. Well, I would say it kind of started with Trico's education. We were an assessment company. During my PhD, I developed a language assessment that could help identify children who are at risk for DLD, particularly in bilingual and multilingual children, which is a great need. And so after I developed the assessment and we created TriCoast to get it in the hands of people who would need it the most, we're talking schools or private speech language pathologists. But I started talking to people about DLD. Everyone kind of just looked at me, unless they were SLPs. Everyone kind of just looked at me and said, "Well, what's that? Is it dyslexia?" That's usually what they would say, and I says, "Oh, okay. I think." There's an awareness piece that needs to come in here because I thought everyone knew what DLD was because I was just in that space for so long. Getting out in the real world, I realized, oh no, this is something that needs extra attention. So, if a child is struggling with language, parents and teachers and communities need to know the signs in order to kind of raise those red flags. So, you know what, maybe this child should be referred for assessment, or we should, really help them out. And so it was actually Robin that came up with the whole book idea. So I'll let him speak on that.
Um, yeah, I loved the assessment tool. And when I first came on with Tricos, I have never heard of DLD myself. It was a brand new term to me as well. And so I was like a sponge, kind of absorbing the Tricos education, their brand. I came on to help support, do sort of like a bit of a brand analysis to see how things were aligned and what the purpose and vision of the company were. And so I made some suggestions around branding. And I spent time with Anne listening to her story and listening to her process. And she showed me her assessment tool. And when she got to the part where she showed the pictures of the how she worked with the children and telling the stories, a light bulb went off in my mind. And I went, oh my, there's something wonderful here because these children get a chance to be invited into a space where they can tell their own story. And is there a way that we could create a container of stories and characters for all of this experience to go beyond the assessment tool, to help them have kind of step into an ecosystem resources, tools, characters, and stories that they could be involved in long term so that it wouldn't just be a one and done assessment, but it could be an experience that children and families could have within their entire world. And so I'm a visionary thinker, kind of, and I think big picture. And so I just went way, way out into the stratosphere while she was talking, and she had no idea what I was thinking. I was just computing in my brain and just being like, oh, yes, this is tell me more. And so I have this really vivid imagination. I've always had that since a child, and I do a lot of character design in my history and other projects. So I immediately started to like absorb like New Brunswick and nature and New Brunswick related characters potentially in a way to celebrate the Maritimes, celebrate nature, but also integrate education with DLD. And so my mind started just layering all of these different thoughts. And so I drafted a couple of ideas, and then I came to Anne and Robert and I said, would you consider children's books for a DLD awareness campaign? And I think they weren't sure at first because they're like, well, we do assessments. And I'm like, yes, I think that's, and I said, I don't want to take away from your assessment. I want to amplify your voice and I want to amplify your message. And I think this could be a really wonderful way. And I'm a fast worker too. So I think part of the use of AI technology, I'm just going to speak about it. It is something that has allowed me to do a lot of work in a short amount of time. I could have absolutely have illustrated those books by hand, and it would have taken me over a year probably and a large budget to do that. So I said, well, let's just lean into the tools we have available to us and let's just make this thing happen. Let's just do it. Let's just go for it. So I kind of presented a kind of probably a win-win scenario maybe to you and showed you lots of different drafts of things. And then we worked together and they embraced my ideas like way beyond my expectation. I mean, it is so integrated into our DNA, and I'm just super excited about all of the things that have transpired in such a short amount of time. And then, of course, learning that there were other DLD books out there was wonderful too, because we're like, wow, there's more amplification of this message. There's more people talking about it. There's more stories out there, more ways to see this experience. And so we were able to grow together. So wonderful to be connected in this way today too. So that's how it came up for me. And did I do okay there? Did I
Yeah.
relay
Yeah,
the
you
story?
yeah, you did it well.
Thanks, Robin. I'd like to open up just a little sidebar for Robin, because Robin, you mentioned artificial intelligence and that. Can you very briefly describe the process to arrive at what we currently see in the books? And then we'll go and look at these books. But how do we get to that physically, that process?
It's such a great question. And I really feel like that AI is an extension of the creator. And the prompting and the imagination comes from a human being. And what I'm experiencing now is this super amplifier of my creativity and a way to be able to visualize it fast, but also in a dialogue and a communication with like 10 artistic assistants. So I look back in time and I think about what it would be like to be a master artist or sculptor back in the time of the Renaissance and be given like 20 artist assistants, or they called them, there's a word for it, apprentices, to be able to say, we're going to build a beautiful statue. I'm going to show you all the things I want for it. You're going to go carve it out, and then I'm going to come and refine it at the end of the day, and we're going to make this thing beautiful, and you're going to learn at the same time. So training AI is like training my team of creatives to build things that I could have never built on my own, certainly in the time that it can be built. So a lot of my process is in prompting, is in synthesizing complex information. I'm pulling information from Tricoast. I'm pulling information from my history. I'm integrating things that I know from psychology and the way that I develop characters. I'm integrating what personality types and styles might be appropriate for a character as I'm designing them. I'm pulling all my brain and I'm just using this synthesizing machine to create an output that many people, I think, on the other side, they just don't understand. They see a finished product and they think, oh, well, AI did it, and that's it. And what they don't understand is that there's actually hours and hours of time and work and intelligence of learned experience in my own personal life over the years that contribute to every prompt that I make, that every consideration I put into a design. comes from a multi-layered complex web system inside of myself. And that's true, I'm sure, of all of us sitting here. So I think we're at a place as educators, educating the world a little bit about AI use as well, because sometimes people, I might be my own perception, but I sometimes encounter people not being able to value the output the same because of what seems like less effort put in, but it's actually not true. It's a lot of effort put into learning a new system and how to amplify our voice with a new system and create finished product with it as well. So I spend a lot of time nuancing the details. So I'll draft a concept and then I have to go in and fix it all because AI is, it's AI. So there's like arms and legs sometimes that aren't quite right. And there's some things that need to be tweaked. It's getting better. But that's where my perfectionist eye comes in, and I do a lot of detail work that takes, that extra time to make sure that the output is as professional and as clean as it can possibly be. So again, the characters came out of my imagination, and I went through lots of different styles to choose what I thought felt most alive and aligned with the brand. And it was personal preference and choice, and we all kind of agreed to those designs together, and off we went. So might be a long answer to a short question, Robert. I'm not sure, but AI can take us a minute to talk about, I think. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much, Robin. And I guess now's the perfect time to go see what do those books look like. We know how they get together and how they're created, but what do they look like? So let's start with Kamisha and Janine. If you can share maybe a few samples of your books and give us some story and some background behind what we're going to see.
As she's getting up, or as she's getting set up here, I'll just say that these slides are taken from a presentation that we did just last month at the American Speech and Hearing Association's annual convention. We did a seminar on representation matters and how we can use children's books to raise awareness for DLD and bring about systemic change.
Yeah, so it was so much fun. I feel like in the preparation for it was really intense and exhausting. It took everything out of us, but the end result was great. And Robin, we connect like everything that you were saying in regards to AI. Both Janine and I are like our eyes were like we're like, oh, we agree. Just the nuances of AI and what we're able to create. We've also been super happy with the journey as well. Um, so we echo your sentiments. So I'll quickly go over the characters and then Janine will step into the books, but just really briefly, giving you a bird's eye view here that we have Dan and Daria. They are the main characters in our books. Um, Dan has DLD and he also has ADHD signs as well, and he acts out. And Dan is the type of Dan is the boy that gets the attention. He gets the attention from teachers. He gets, and we touch on race as well, and as like a white boy as well, that he gets the resources, he gets the attention, and he's, visibly gets noticed and quickly referred. And then we have Daria that steps into book number 2, and she's a multilingual girl. She speaks Jamaican Creole at home, and she has DLD and social anxiety as well. And for Daria, she goes under the radar because she has pro-social behavior. She's quiet, she's shy, she's sweet, helpful, all the things. Then we have Ming. He's a Chinese boy who he's an English language learner, and he's the type that he gets dismissed as, oh yeah, he's just learning English. He's fine, he'll catch up. And our book series tackles kind of the assessment biases that he experiences. And then there's Millen, which we're super proud of as well. And she's a real girl from our community. We did a contest, and she was the winner of the contest. And the contest winner got to be featured in our next book. So she did her own yeah. This is an AI version of her, which is great, and got to interview her, and she is really into the arts, and so we kind of created that our fourth story revolving around her. And she kind of shows the progression of DLD. She's quite confident. She's been in speech therapy for a long time. And it kind of shows kind of her ongoing needs, um, like how she navigates masking, how she navigates self advocacy, and so forth. And then so that's them. These are the cover of our books. We have Dan and the Paper Airplane, Dan and Daria make friends, Dan and Daria go to a birthday party. We noticed that a lot of the parents wanted to see our characters not only in a school setting, not only in a home setting, but also wanted to see our characters in a social setting. So at a birthday party. And then we have Dan and Daria, the exchange, the theater exchange, and we have our like parent guide.
Exactly. And yeah, I'll just also point out that we've had a lot of people in our DLD Facebook community, so that we're super excited that we have thousands of members in there now, parents, speech therapists, teachers, researchers, and we've had so many of them reach out to us and say, we need this in our language. And we've had so many people volunteer to translate. So our books were actually just featured as the main focus of the DLD Awareness Day campaign in Wales, which was really exciting. We just sent a bulk order over to the Czech Republic. So we've got a lot of translations. Our series has been translated into French. We're working on Chinese, just waiting for the proofreading to be done on that, Persian, Arabic, what else, Kamisha, Spanish. So yeah, that's been really exciting too.
Mhm.
So here is part of the first book, Dan and the Paper Airplane. And in this book, we introduce what DLD is. We actually repeat that concept in different words many times throughout this book. And we show Dan struggling academically and socially, and then him going to meet with Miss Lopez, his speech therapist. And we show this light bulb moment on these pages where it really starts to make sense to Dan why he struggles. And that's one thing that we're very passionate about is empowering kids so that they can understand themselves, understand that their brain works differently, understand that they're not a bad person or they're not somebody who isn't smart. They just learn differently. And so when kids start to understand that about themselves, I feel like that builds the foundation that they need to then be able to use their strategies and use their tools. And I've been a speech pathologist for 17 years, and I've noticed over the progression of my career that kids, you can teach them strategies, but if they don't recognize which one works for them, or if they don't know how to initiate using that in a different context, they're not going to actually use the strategies. So we wanted to really show role models of that in our story. Let's jump over to the next one. And then in this one, Dan and Daria make friends. We, like Kamisha said, wanted to show how DLD can manifest differently. So some kids, their DLD results in a lot of impulsivity, explosive behavior, getting in trouble, and then other kids tend to withdraw or struggle internally. So we're showing Daria who her story deserves to be told and her challenges deserve to be recognized. But like Kamisha said, very often she's the type of kid that gets missed. So here we show Daria on a play date with Dan, and she starts to share a great idea that she has for an art project that they're working on. Because Dan's a paper airplane making expert, Daria is very good at painting and other aspects of art. So she starts to share. She says, "Hey Dan, I have an idea. Let's, um, well, we could." Oh, never mind, I forget. She stumbles. And so in this one, we wanted to show that kids with DLD might have word finding difficulty. They may have difficulty with processing their sentences, putting them all together, putting all the words together, but they deserve support, right? We don't want to just brush them aside and think, oh, she was just shy or she was just quiet. We want to recognize, no, in this case, in this situation, she's struggling with language too. And so she deserves to get support. And we also want to show a friend with DLD. So it's a very beautiful moment for these two when they realize that they both have DLD and they can connect over that, realize that you can't see DLD and that it can show up differently for different kids, but that it's actually way more common than we had realized. This one's a birthday party story, and we wanted to show difficulty with following instructions. So in this one, Jack, the birthday boy's mom, gives a really fast whirlwind instruction for following an obstacle course, and she uses temporal concepts. She says before, she says after, she uses a conditional direction. Even if this happens, do this. And we know those kinds of things tend to be quite challenging for our kids with DLD. So we just wanted to show that in action, that clicks. I've had so many parents say, and Kamisha the same, that, oh, that's why my child was struggling at a birthday party, or oh, I'm going to prepare my child for this next birthday party by blah, 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 and using different strategies that we show. And then we also wanted to show Dan's progression. So this is the third book in the series, and Dan has developed a lot of skills to be able to self-regulate. So in this one, we see him remembering what Ms. Lopez, his speech therapist, said to him and using his strategies so that even though he's frustrated by the language challenges, even though his friends are frustrated with him because he's messing up the game, he's able to calm himself down. And then lastly, we've got the theater exchange story. And in this one, we really focus on the theme for DLD Awareness Day this year on how you can't see DLD. And we talk a lot about masking, and we're really proud of Millen being such a positive role model, not only for all of our readers, but also for Dan and Daria themselves. And then, Kamisha, do you want to jump in on the?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and then lastly, for our parent guide, we created some lessons that parents can use at home, and it's really a guide. Some clinics are using this as a, they've just been diagnosed with DLD. Now what? Um, how do I navigate this journey? So the parent guide takes them through this kind of beautiful process of like lesson one. They're just talking about celebrating who they are, celebrating these great the things that they are great at. And then lesson two kind of goes into, okay, now let's like break down what are some of the challenges that we have. And like, let mommy and daddy start first. And like they share like something that man that they were really working on. And then it kind of opens the door for their child to share. And it's just, yeah, it's like a really the parents have shared with us that it is this like gentle, beautiful awareness journey that we take them on. So that's kind of us, and we've been having a great time kind of in hearing from the parents on how our books have resonated with them.
Yeah, not only them too, but also there's the siblings of the kids who have DLD. So it starts to make a lot more sense to them too when they see the challenges in a story context like that. And last thing I wanted to say is also that so many parents have expressed anxiety and concern about how to tell their child that they have DLD. How old should they be? How should they say it? If their child already struggles with language, how is it going to make sense? What if it makes the child feel badly about themselves? And so we really wanted to give parents tools to make that conversation so much easier because actually it can be a very positive, beautiful first step in the child's journey towards understanding themselves and towards making things easier. And so, yeah, that was another reason why we created that.
Well, thank you so much for that overview of your books, but not only what they look like, but probably more importantly, the reasoning behind it, the science behind it, the intentionality of the stories and the action that happens in there. I hope people are starting to realize that there's a lot more to write a book than just sitting down and drawing pictures and throwing a few words underneath them. There's a lot of thought involved, and clearly that was very well highlighted by what you just presented. Thank you so much. Anne and Robin, what do these Trico's Adventures books look like? And what's in there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to share my screen. And I just wanted to highlight this picture here with that has our three main characters. Robin, you can jump in and talk about the characters and the complexity of the characters. Then I'll jump into the books if you want.
Sure. These characters are kind of costumed, I would say, based on nature inspiration. So the first character was Drew Dandelion, and I was thinking about his name. I was thinking about a kind of a fun and clever way to say DLD, so I named him Drew L. Dandelion because it's just like a little cute mnemonic. And I thought I loved dandelions as a kid. What would it be like to create a character that kind of was like in nature and connected to nature, and the way that he dressed in his style was like a dandelion. And that's really the inspiration from my own personal history that informed the creation of the first character. And then as I was thinking about other maybe Canadian inspired or nature inspired characters, the second character was Lily. And then the third character, she's a ladybug. And again, love little nature creatures and insects, and little children love to explore the forest and think about forest characters and creatures. And then Sammy Salmon is the third character, and again wanted to create different water elements, sky elements, earth elements, and thinking about all the ways to inform a character's design. And I have a history in my background of studying psychology and working in what's called the Enneagram of personality. And I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the Enneagram, but I'm trained in that system. And so I think about archetypally how characters might be in the world and what kind of concerns them. And so I apply some of that thinking when I think about, well, this character, maybe Sammy Salmon is more of a peacemaker and super quiet and not quite able to use his voice just because his personality is much more harmonizing. So that's a little bit of an embedded character design for him. And then Lily is more kind of a questioner type. She's a little bit more unsure and not as trusting of herself, maybe in situations. And so she's navigating sometimes a little bit of that inside of herself too. So we think about her in that context, or I do. And then Drew is sort of like the artist, creative little character who's using his art and creativity to help amplify and use his voice. And in his story reflects a little bit of that too. So that's how I think about character design and when I'm building them. And then Anne and our speech language pathologist that I know Anne will reference really build in the language learning elements to provide them with the story anchoring and the driver through their experience. We have more characters that we don't have here because we have like a tri-coast east, a tri-coast north, and a tri-coast west that we want to build in the future because tri-coast is brand is the three coasts, talking about diversity and inclusion of all of Canada. So in my mind, when I think about our books and our series, I think about Canada also as being sort of the foundation of the stories, and informs a little bit about how we think about their, you know, their background, and inviting children to celebrate their country and their nature and to explore it and be proud of it. And so that's where inspired their design.
Thank you, Robin, for talking about the kind of the behind the personalities behind the characters. When you brought that to me, it made this creating or writing these stories a lot easier because we can talk about character development. We can talk about difficulties coming from different personalities. You know, these three characters, they have DLD, different facets of DLD. But however, just because you have DLD, it's going to be expressed in a different way because every child is unique. And that's what we wanted to really bring out in these books is to have that personality behind it. And so yes, we have Lily, Drew, and Sammy. And so right now we have two books that are out. The first one was Drew and the Magic Pencil. Drew's DLD, it's more on the expressive side. He has these difficulties getting his words out in a way that he wants them to. And that makes him a little nervous because in the story, he has to tell a story at a forest festival. And he knows he has that difficulty. The other side, kind of, call it the other side of the coin, Lily is more on the comprehension side, the receptive side, where she has difficulty following directions. The forest friends are supposed to plant some trees to help make the forest grow for years to come, but the steps get very mixed up, and then Lily is accused of not listening. And we know a lot of children who they might do the wrong thing. They can be accused of not listening when they're trying really, really hard. And so we wanted to highlight that in that book. So kind of to talk a little bit more in depth about those two difficulties. So for Drew, for example, he tried telling his story by Sammy's stream. Dragonfly go, he find Drew's words were stuck. They were nothing like the big story in his head. They know what they want to say. It's like they're not getting there. And they know it too. Versus Lily. Lily called her friend Maya, want to help me? Before you dig the hole, mark the spot with a twig. Lily's forehead wrinkled. She heard the words, but what came first? Digging a hole or marking a spot? First step should be, and she starts getting nervous. What I wanted to do in these books, I think I always have my educator hat on. And how can we help these children? And also if there's an adult reading with them, how can they help? So each book has a mantra that the adult can work with on with the child, and we wanted something that they could remember, they can repeat even after they read the book. So for Drew, we have breathe, wait, take your time. The words will come. They'll be just fine. So it gives the child that reassurance that, you know what, as long as you try, that's what matters. It's going to work out. And also, we know that having DLD can be frustrating sometimes. If you know what you want to say that's not coming out, that can build frustration in you. So we want to teach the children, you know what? Let's start by breathing. Let's take a step back. Let's take a deep breath and then start. Because we know if children aren't regulated, they're not going to be able to learn. So that's when we start with let's breathe, let's wait, and take your time. Then we can begin. Versus Lily, because she has trouble following directions. In each story, we have little Oliver the Wise Owl. He always comes in, gives a little piece of advice. He's the one who gives the mantra and a little sprinkles a little magic, and then he kind of disappears and lets the children practice and reach their goal. So for this second book, we have Oliver giving Lily's advice is when the steps feel tricky, do these three. 1, ask for help. 2, take your time. 3, number the steps and you'll do just fine. This mantra kind of felt a little personal to me. I always think back when I was a young kid, I never advocated for myself ever. I was that really, really quiet, shy child who, if I didn't understand, I just thought I was stupid. And so when the first step is ask for help, we actually demonstrate in this book how to ask for help. What words can you use to advocate for yourself? So that was a component that was really, really important to me, especially for children who are shy or who are just unsure. And so the next one is the tool. When we worked alongside the speech language pathologist, Karen, she said, let's make these books really relevant for therapy as well. And let's use tools and strategies that are actually used in therapy. So for Drew, because he struggles getting the words out, he finds this magic pencil and realizes that, oh, I can draw really well with this. Let's use my drawings. And then together with my drawings and the way that I tell my stories, I'm going to get my story out in a way that suits me. And so we want to teach children that it's okay to use accommodations, and it's just a way for your creativity to build language, to build your artistry, and you'll get your message out. Versus Lily, she's given a magic notebook. So this is where she learns how to write the steps in order to help organize her thoughts. And then Along with the tool comes with the strategy. So Drew, when he realizes, oh wow, my drawings are really, really nice, and I think people are starting to understand me. And along with practicing with his friends, we see that in the book. You can see his confidence begin to grow with the book. As for Lily, alongside the book, when she learns how to advocate for herself and then listing the steps in order, she uses that in different contexts. So, like I said earlier in the book, they learn how to plant trees in the right order. And so, yes, that's kind of her strategy is writing down the steps, not assuming you're going to remember them, but writing them down. And as I said earlier, it's all about self-regulation with Drew's mantra and also the pencil that glows when he breathes in and dims when he breathes out. That helps with self-regulation as well. With Lily, part of the book where she, for the first time, she has to ask for help. She goes, okay, she took a deep breath, gathered her courage, and asked, Oliver, would you rewind? You can see her actually advocating for herself, saying, I need to understand. And so that was something that was really important. But, take a deep breath first. And at the end of the book, we say, okay, the story's done, everything is all nice, but I wanted to keep that reinforcement going. So there's a call to action at the end of each book. So with Drew, because we talked about drawing, we're asking the child to write or draw a story and then tell that story to your family and friends. They're going to love it from the beginning to the end. And then Lily, we kind of give 2 pages of that looks like a notebook, but basically says, is there something that you like to do? List the steps to guide you through. So whether it's baking cookies, getting dressed in the morning, something that you can learn those strategies and keep that reinforcement going in your daily lives. And so right now with the books, we also have parent and teacher guides, how to not only talk about DLD to the child or your students, but how to do it using the books as well. So this is something that we really like, and you can find these on our website or by emailing us. We'd be more than happy to give you copies. Our books are all in English, French, and Spanish, and we also have Chinese for the first one as well. As you can see, the third one, Sammy and the Magic Stones, is our third one that's going to come out in about January, so very excited about that. So we have Drew and the Magic Pencil, Lily and the Magic Notebook, soon to be Sammy and the Magic Stones, and we also have a coloring book that goes with it, especially for the children who love to color. Let's keep that reinforcement going.
Okay, thank you, Anne. So basically, you touched on a lot of things that, in terms of a recap, or as we wind down this interesting conversation, I'll go back to Janine and Kamisha and maybe give you an opportunity to continue that conversation about how do you see your books being used by parents, children's SLPs? You touched on that, but are there other ways, maybe more direct, more strategic, that maybe you want to add here?
Sure, yeah. So I know I use these books and the other resources that go along with them. I use them in speech therapy all the time. I also have sent them into my kids' schools, and I've heard from so many parents that they love reading them before bed, or if they notice that their child has had a particular challenge, they like to show a challenge that Dan or Daria had in the story, and then that seems to open up the safety or helps the child feel more comfortable to share something vulnerable. We also have glossaries in the back of all the books that lots of SLPs at the ASHA conference were commenting on, because we want to show not only the new words that the children can learn from the story, but we also want to show context clues. So what was the context that you found that word in? What are some synonyms that go with that word? What is an image that's associated with that word? And we also provide an opportunity to use that word in a sentence. So as an SLP myself, any goal that I have with a child, whether it's a feature of grammar, if the child's working on past tense, whether they're learning how to tell a story, whether they're learning how to compare and contrast, almost any language goal that you have for a child, you can incorporate the stories when you're working on that. So not only does the child have a very motivating and realistic context to learn, and we know from research that developing the story element understanding, that is a very, very solid foundation that is needed in order to then learn words effectively to build up that vocabulary. So you can really use the stories for any therapy goal that you have with the child. And then we've also created quite a few posters that are character themed that you can use in therapy as well. So here are Dan and Daria's top word finding tips for our kids with DLD who struggle with word finding. Here are their top self-advocacy tips. Or we've had parents ask us, can Dan and Daria show my child how to join in a conversation? So we have a poster for that that lists out the different steps. And then we've also developed an animated podcast that goes with this. So my voice is starting to go. Kamisha, why don't you jump in and tell about that?
Yeah, before the podcast, I also wanted to mention, I think as a educator, it helps create, there's a huge empathy piece that can be added in the classroom, whether it's like a carpet read aloud or having, we on our website, we offer teachers and SLPs discussion questions, activities. Literally, they could kind of print it off and have it used as a read aloud or centers. And oftentimes, teachers have shared that for them, the light bulb clicked within like different friendship groups that they were able to realize like, oh, wow, this is why, so and so has this reaction, or so it really, um, yeah, it really has this beautiful air of like empathy that the students walk away with. So in the classroom, and I think Janine just touched on the animated piece. My husband took the characters and then kind of started with AI, huh, Robin? AI was able to animate those characters for some of our older students that enjoyed not only reading, but to be able to, they almost feel like they're a fly in the wall and seeing two characters with their podcast headphones on, talking about, in a 3-minute clip, talking about their experience at recess or how they felt after they missed a joke from a group of friends. So yeah, those are some additional ways that we've been using our books.
Yeah, I that's been one of the most amazing pieces of feedback that we've been getting is even, parents buying the books for children who don't even have DLD. And then the children are like, oh, now I get it. There was one child that told their mom and said, you know what, there's a kid that speaks like Drew in my class. I thought he was just weird. I didn't know it was DLD. Like that's amazing right there. It's kind of like why we created the books in the first place, right? To create that awareness, build that empathy so everyone can understand and everyone's works together. So yeah, I just wanted to add that little piece in there.
I'll also say too, we are animating as well. And so we have started that process too, because it all lends itself, just like you say, we can create a lot of campaigns, educational awareness campaigns with animation and animating characters. And that's what you're doing. And that's right in alignment with what we're doing as well. I have this crazy vision. I don't know if it's crazy. I have this vision of maybe this exists somewhere in Canada, but is there like a network where educational programs all live? Remember, like when we were kids, or when I was a kid, I'm dating myself. I loved Mr. Dress Up and I loved Sesame Street and I loved educational programming. And Canada, of course, is known for its, focus on education and the way that we operate and our cultural values. I just thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we all had a space where we could show up together with our creativity and build a learning center or network where kids could come, parents could come and watch television programming or animated material to teach with. So anyway, that's something that I'm percolating on in my side myself about like, well, does this exist or can we like do this together? Or like, is there a place we can all show up together and land and what's happening? Am I out of the loop or is it already happening? And so anyway, I'm curious if that's anything that you also think about as well or you're curious about.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I do feel very passionate about creating a show. We ask so many SLPs and teachers, have you ever seen a TV show with an autistic character? Have you ever seen dyslexia on TV or in a children's story? And of course, there's great stuff out there, and I think this is the key piece that is missing for raising awareness because DLD doesn't make sense in the same way that some of these other disorders make sense to families, to people who don't have that specific training. And so there have been awareness campaigns in the past, but they haven't really worked. And I think that getting a TV show out there, that's definitely something that we've talked about quite a few times, right, Kamisha? I think that is a hugely important piece of this puzzle. And so, yeah, we'll have to continue this conversation because we're definitely on the same wavelength here. Mhm.
That sounds great. Kanisha and Janine, you've touched on a few points that we were going to touch on. And just to kind of recap, you've talked about how the books can be used by parents and speech language pathologists in a variety of areas and environments. You've talked about the feedback, always very positive and encouraging, of course, and some of the resources you've attached. Anne and Robin, can you kind of recap those three things? What happens in those three areas with Tri-Coast education? What are people saying about all the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think one of the great thing is when you get it, you get it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to explain the book and DLD, but it's like a light bulb that goes off. They're like, oh, of course, they can start naming, if they're a teacher, they can start naming some students that they had in the past, or parents be like, oh, my child's friend, that's kind of like them. And so it grabs them immediately. And with the books, it's like, well, okay, like I want to learn more. And so that's kind of one of the reasons some of the adults will buy the book because they want to learn more as well. Um, some of the pieces of feedback that we've been getting, for example, one little girl, she sees herself so much in Lily, to the point where for the first time, she just got diagnosed with DLD about 8 months prior. And she's now an advocate for DLD in her school, and she's going to put on a presentation. Like she went from being completely insecure, felt very alone, to now being in front of an entire school and talking about her diagnosis. Like what what better feedback than that? And I think that's extraordinary. And I think with the work that we're continuing, we're also going to create a user guide that goes with the three books. We're going to put that and package it together. I think that's just going to, be even more pertinent for speech language pathologists, resource teachers, and classroom teachers as well, and of course families. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that too would be some of the vision that we have. And this isn't about feedback, Robert, your question, but this would be a bit more in alignment with probably our ecosystem and our vision too, which our SLP, we worked with her and talked with about what it would be like to have some tangible objects that children can work with. So like in our stories, we have purple magic, and purple magic represents the learning potential of every child. And so we have that thematically through our books. But also that magic has to do with the held objects, like a magic pencil, for example, maybe like a stress pencil that you could squeeze or touch, and then maybe there is an actual journal that they could have and write in. And maybe there is a tactile doll that represents the character that they can hold or cuddle to as part of their self-regulation exercise as they're learning how to navigate the learning challenges. And so we're really looking at how to leverage like the worlds that we're building to be creative and lean into lots of different ways to interact with children and families. And so that's something that's probably on the horizon too, with all of the other things going on. So we're excited about all the possibilities and what's next to come.
Well, I think based on today's conversation, I think we're all excited about what we're doing collectively in the world of DLD. There's been so much positive change in the last year or two in that space that time will tell where it lands, but there's very many things going on, a lot of it led by us in Canada. It's kind of weird to say, but it is what it is. I mean, we're we're right at the forefront, and hopefully people around the world can chime in, follow us, take the lead on us. Hey, go for it. It's all good for the kids, and that's what we want ultimately. Janine, Kamisha, Robin, Ann, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we invite everybody to not only re-listen to this discussion, but also share the link with your friends. I'm sure that the more people see it, the more they'll be enthused by what we're doing and the cause. Thank you very much, and have a great day.